Hey guys, welcome to my research project on how exposure therapy affects arachnophobia. I hope you enjoy. So my why is that I believe with this project I can destroy the stigma that all spiders are seen as like dangerous, venomous, aggressive, and like out to get you. Because I do believe that way too many people kind of have that thought process and it kind of influences the people around them. And another reason of my why is that I currently have a spider collection of my own that is continuing to grow, and I believe that they're all very tame and they're very sweet little creatures. So my abstract, my study explores how the different types of exposure therapy affects those who are clinically diagnosed with arachnophobia. The purpose of my study is to decrease the population of those who are affected by it. I had a group of 30 individuals who were gathered and split by random assignment to see if virtual reality or the use of a real spider has a larger effect on lowering their phobia levels. My participants used what's called the Spider Phobia Questionnaire, or the SPQ, to measure their phobia levels before and after each of the exposure therapy sessions. After a 6-week period, the group with the exposure therapy from the real spider was proven to have the lower phobia levels after measurement from the SPQ, and the use of exposure therapy for those who are affected with arachnophobia was found to be helpful in decreasing their fear and thus protecting their safety and the safety of the spider. So my research questions. My first one is, what is the difference between the phobia levels with the use of a virtual reality spider and a real spider in this experiment? I also want to know how drastic will the results change during each session, comparing the use of the virtual reality spider and the real spider. My hypothesis is that the sample population that used the real spider in their experiment will have less phobia levels at the end of their experiment due to it being like the actual thing and not like not like a, I guess, like a fake reality. So a few definition of terms that I believe we should know before we move on. So phobia is known as the marked fear or anxiety about a specific object or situation, and that is defined by the DSM-5, by the way. Arachnophobia is the irrational fear of spiders. Exposure therapy is the psychotherapy that involves repeated real, visualized, or simulated exposure to or confrontation with a feared situation or object or traumatic event or memory in order to achieve habituation, and that is used especially in the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorder, or phobias. And then finally, for those who don't know what virtual reality is, it is an artificial environment which is experienced through sensory stimuli, such as sights and sounds, provided by a computer in which one's actions partially determine what happens in the environment. So you're pretty much in like a whole like different like universe. So my literature review summary, there are a few articles that I used that had showed the effectiveness of exposure therapy in other circumstances such as earthquakes and perfectionism. My literature review showed the effectiveness of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which exposure therapy is a form of CBT. I also noticed that a lot of the studies that I found that tested exposure therapy on arachnophobia used mostly female participants. Like, I thought it was kind of interesting how it would say something like, we used 7 female participants and 1 male participant. I also noticed that I kind of critiqued those articles by saying I wish that they had a more like diverse population or a more diverse sample size. They use different forms of exposure therapy, such as virtual reality and a mental health app. For the mental health app, think of like the app Finch, where you take care, well, I guess like you're taking care of like yourself, and then there's like a cartoon like spider therapist that like helps you out, which I thought was kind of cool. And then at the end of the app, it gives you like a final test where you go outside and you go looking for spiders like under rocks and stuff. There's also an article that talks about the multiple possible origins of arachnophobia, and those include like evolutionary psychology, the venomousness of a spider. Some of them are seen as unhygienic. Then there are the people who are influenced by others who are afraid of spiders. Then there's the psychoanalysis of spiders becoming a metaphor or a symbol of like personal problems, and cultural influences such as like superstitions. My methodology, when it comes to my participants, I gathered 30 people who all reside in Adams County, and they have all been recruited from Blessing Hospital's outpatient behavioral health services after 3 anonymous outpatient therapists posted flyers about the study both in their office and on online forums. The participants' ages range from 18 to 35. The sample included 14 male participants and 16 female participants. 18 of the participants were Caucasian, 6 were African American, 2 were Asian, and 4 were Hispanic. Participants were eligible if they spoke English fluently and have no history of anxiety disorders, so that they were purely diagnosed with arachnophobia with no like previous anxiety disorder. All participants had to have been diagnosed with arachnophobia in the past 4 years using the spider phobia questionnaire. So my data collection method, I had over the span of 6 weeks, each participant attended weekly sessions that lasted approximately 20 minutes each. Prior to each experiment, the participants took the SPQ to assess whether they where they currently stand with their phobia levels. Then they were administered the same questionnaire after each session to track any signs of progress. So my procedures, I split the 30 people into 2 groups of 15 by random assignment. One group individually interacts with the real spider, also known as Sushi the tarantula, and one group individually uses virtual reality. So they're not all in like the same room having these sessions all together. Like they are going in one by one to do these. So for the real spider, what I had everyone do was that they would come in one at a time, and they were given each of these sessions that you see on the screen. Basically, like I had week 1, we had Sushi in his tank across the room from the participant with 5 heavy books stacked on top of his lid. Week 2, we had Sushi in his tank on the table in front of the participant with the 5 same books stacked on top of the lid. Week 3, we had the participant removing the books off the top of the lid one by one. Week 4, we had the participant removing the lid off of the tank, pouring water into Sushi's empty water dish, and wiping the outside of the tank. Week 5, we had the participant using a small paintbrush to guide Sushi around his tank, and an experimenter removing Sushi from his tank to place on the table in front of the participant. And the final week 6, we had the participant using the paintbrush to guide Sushi into their hand and holding it for 60 seconds. I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but before we started collecting data, we did have Sushi's owner check for any signs of pre-molt, which basically means that that they're about to be in a very or that Sushi was about to be in a very vulnerable position, that if anything like is done to him, or any interaction is done to Sushi, it does put his well-being in danger. So it also kind of would put the participants' well-being in danger too, because they do become very like skittish and very almost kind of aggressive when they're in pre-molt. Sushi's owner also made sure that he was fed beforehand, so that's probably important. The virtual reality spider, for week 1, we had I guess I do want to clarify that in the virtual reality spider, we did create a fake spider to resemble Sushi, so I'll be referring to the fake spider as Sushi for this section as well. But for the virtual reality spider, for week 1, we had Sushi in his tank across the room with 5 books on top of the lid. I will say it is all pretty similar to the real one with only a few changes. Week 2, we had Sushi in his tank on the table in front of the participant with the same 5 books on top of the lid. Then, like I said, same as the real spider sessions. Week 3, participant removes the books off the lid. Week 4, the participant feeds Sushi and wipes the outside of his tank. Sushi shows gratitude for being fed and having a happy face emoticon appear right above him. Number 5, Sushi crawling out of his tank on his own to stand on the table in front of the participant. The participant offers the virtual reality hand out, and Sushi crawls onto the hand. The same happy face emoticon appears over Sushi's head. Sushi crawls off the participant's hand after 60 seconds. And then the final week, week 6, the virtual reality is taken away, and the real Sushi is on the table in front of the participant. An experimenter uses a paintbrush to guide Sushi onto the participant's hand and is supposed to be held for 60 seconds, just like the real spider sessions. So my instrumentations, I had the spider phobia questionnaire, also known as the SPQ. It was used to measure the self-report fear levels of participants. The questionnaire has had stronger construct validity in former studies, which has made it more suitable for arachnophobia cases. The spider phobia questionnaire has a good internal consistency of having a Chromebox alpha of 0.82. To maintain consistency, the spider phobia questionnaire was used all across sessions in this study, and internal validity was enhanced by having the concept of random assignment with the participants. And that's all I got for you. Have a great day. And here are my teeny tiny long list of references. All right, thank you guys.